Hi everyone! Welcome to Souped Up Recipes. Today we are making a classic dish from Northeastern Chinese cuisine, 猪肉白菜炖粉条. The name pretty much explains everything. 猪肉 means pork, 白菜 is Napa cabbage, 粉条 is Vermicelli Noodles. 炖 is a cooking method like braising or simmering, which is a common cooking technique used in northeast of China because the winter there is so cold and harsh. A pot of warm, hearty, homey stew is perfect. So let's get started.
You will need some pork belly. I used 1.7 pounds. Make sure you get a nice piece with those clear layers. Cut it into 1-inch cubes. If you don't like pork belly because it's fatty, you can use short ribs or change it to beef and chicken.
I'm going to blanch the pork. You often see that as a requirement in Chinese meat stew recipes, and probably wondering, what is blanching? I have blanched my meat on this channel many times, and I just realized that I have never talked about it in detail. So, blanching is a pre-treatment in which we cook the pork for a short amount of time and then introduce it to cold water or cool air to stop the heating process. We may begin the blanching with cold water or hot boiling water, depending on the ingredient and the recipe that you are making. It makes sense to blanch vegetables that take a long time to cook, but why blanch meat? Let me answer that question as I'm doing it. For this recipe, you want to start with cold water. Add your pork in.
1 leek. Cut off the root and the top green part. Slightly crush the green part. Some people tend to throw the root and the green part away. They are actually good to put in the pot and use for the blanching. Quickly cut 5 to 6 slices of ginger and add it to the pot along with a drizzle of Chinese cooking wine. If you can't cook with alcohol for some reason, you can throw in a few pieces of lemon peel.
Another tip here, don't fill the pot too much. Half of the volume is good. If you go above that, I find it overflows easily when it comes to a boil. I learned that the hard way, and trust me, you do not want to mess like that. Let's put the lid on. Turn the heat to high and bring this to a boil. As the temperature is climbing up, it contracts the meat cells, which will push out some excess liquid inside the meat. When it leaches out and contact with the heat, it will form into a foamy substance. Here, let me show you. The water is boiling now, and you can see lots of impurities floating on the top. That is what I'm talking about. You want to get rid of it because it has a gamey aftertaste, which does affect the flavor negatively. It's also not a pretty looking. It can coat other ingredients, especially we will add cabbage and noodles later. These two ingredients are mild in taste. They like to absorb lots of flavors from the soup, so you can really tell the difference if you didn't blanch it.
What I normally do is to skim the scum by using a fine sieve. But today, we use the root and the green part of the leek. It catches all the scum and there is not that many things for me to skim out. Look at the root. It's covered by all those foamy stuff. Turn off the heat, pick out the aromatics and discard them. Fish all the meat out and shake off the excess water. Set it aside. I decided to discard the water because my pork belly was previously frozen. If your meat is fresh and directly from the farm, you can keep the water as a broth for later use. Now, let's prepare some aromatics. This is the white part of the leek that we reserved. Slice it with a 45-degree angle into half-inch thick pieces. 1 to 2 inches of ginger. Crush and roughly dice it. 6 to 8 cloves of garlic. Crush them. 3 to 5 pieces of dried red chilies. Cut them open to release the flavor. Besides that, You will also need 2 pieces of star anise, half tablespoon of Sichuan peppercorns. Add 2 tablespoons of oil and 1.5 tablespoons of sugar to the wok. Turn the heat to low and stir it constantly. We will caramelize the sugar. This is going to take a few minutes. If you are using a black cookware like mine that is hard to see the color change, you can use the stainless steel spatula to lift up the sugar so you can check it carefully. Once you see that it changes to a red or brown color, you can quickly toss in the well-drained pork belly cubes and turn the heat to medium. Keep stirring for 3 to 5 minutes to char the pork. As you are doing this, you will see more oil appearing because some of the fat will be rendered out from the pork belly. Toss in the leek, garlic, ginger, dried red chilies, star anise, and the Sichuan peppercorns. Continue to stir for a couple of minutes or until fragrant. Now we will add the seasonings. 2 tablespoons of soy sauce and 2.5 tablespoons of soybean paste. This is the brand that I'm using. If you don't have access to buy the Chinese soybean paste, you can use the Korean soybean paste as a replacement. The recipe will come out in a similar consistency and taste.
Keep mixing until all the seasonings are well combined. Then we will add some boiling hot water and simmer the pork on low heat until tender. A carbon steel wok is not designed for making stew, so I recommend transferring everything into a clay pot or a Dutch oven. I used about 5 cups of water, including the water that I added to the wok before. While the pork is braising on low heat, we can talk about the other 2 main ingredients, vermicelli noodles and Napa cabbage. The noodles that I'm using today is actually sweet potato noodles. The Asian store around where I live always sell them in the Korean aisle. Whenever you buy them, you just make sure that the main ingredient is either sweet potato starch or potato starch. You don't want to use rice noodles or wheat noodles because they tend to gum up the broth and make the soup really thick, which is not what you want for this recipe.
Soak the noodles in room temperature water for 1 hour. Right now, they are stiff. My bowl is not big enough, so part of the noodles are above the water. That's fine. You just give them 5 to 10 minutes. They will be bendable, and you can push them down under the water. While that is soaking, let's take care of the Napa cabbage, also known as daikon cabbage. Take off the big leaves. The stem part will take a few minutes to cook, while the leafy part only takes 30 seconds, so I do like to separate them. Stack the stems up and slice them into 1/2 inch thick pieces. For the leafy part, you just run your knife over roughly, and that's it. Now, we just continue to wait for the pork to be chopstick tender. This is how I check it. Grab a pair of chopsticks. You should be able to pick up a piece of meat without it falling apart. If it falls apart, that is too tender, which is fine in taste, but it doesn't look good because all the meat pieces will be mushed into a mess. You want it to be just tender enough that if you pinch the meat with a little bit force, it will break apart.
Also, check the liquid amount at this point. It should be a little bit above the pork. I don't think I have enough, so I will add a little more boiling hot water. If you have too much, you can always crank up the heat and reduce it a little bit. By the way, there are lots of fat floating on top of the soup. You can skim that off for health reasons, but I don't want to do that. Believe it or not, the fat is what makes the cabbage and the noodles extra flavorful, so try to leave it if you can.
Adding the soaked but well-drained sweet potato noodles and the cabbage stems. Stir them to mix. The temperature will drop down a little bit. You just wait for it to come back to a simmer or until the noodles are cooked through. Give it a taste to adjust the flavor. I add a little bit more than 1 tablespoon of salt here, tossing the leafy part of the cabbage. It does look like overcrowded at this moment, but once you stir them around, it's not that much. Give it a taste again to see if you like the flavor. Any final adjustment should be made at this point. That's it. Garnish it with some diced scallion and dried red chilies. I grew up in the south of China and I'm so used to delicate foods such as dim sum, steamed buns. They are nice and neat. The Northern Chinese cuisine is the opposite of exquisite. You don't see beautiful dinnerware and the food always comes in a big portion. It's just a completely different experience, which is exactly how I like it. The broth is savory and creamy. Everything together is nice and warm, simply delicious.
I hope you give this a try soon. If you did, leave me a comment, let me know how it goes. As always, don't forget to check the description where you can find all the links, including the printable recipe, the related videos, the purchase link for the special ingredients if you don't know where to buy them, or the tools that I used in this video. Thank you for watching and I will see you next time. Bye!